All right, greetings and welcome to the District 5 School Board debate for Pickens County. We're glad you took time out of your busy schedule, and we appreciate your presence, and we hope you learn a lot this evening. Now, the first thing we want to do is take care of a little bit of housekeeping. If you have a cell phone, we would encourage you to put it on silent so that it doesn't interrupt during the debate. Second thing we'd like to mention, in the foyer, off to the left, there's a restroom, so you keep that in mind. Now, we're going to allow not live streaming, but blogging, chat, and texting. But if you do that, be considerate of your neighbor. This debate is also live streamed. If a person goes to pcvotes.com, go over in the right-hand bar, go down there and click on live stream. It'll take you to a live stream. And after the debate will be uploaded to YouTube. And you'll have the opportunity to view it there as many times as you would like. Again, we appreciate your presence. We're going to begin and get right into it. And we're going to introduce our panelists this evening. The first panelist is the co-chair for the state chapter for Americans for Prosperity. She lives in District 5, Ms. Debbie Spall. All right, our next one is representing the Fraternal Order of the Police, Mr. Kirby. All right. Our next panelist is Ms. Gloria Morris. She's representing the Parenting Place, and I think there's a couple other names that go with it. But we're glad you're here. Our next panelist represents the Business Education Alliance here in Pickens County, Mr. Jerome Arnett. Glad to have you. There are three individuals vying for District 5 seat of the Board of Education. We're going to introduce those at this time. The first one is Ms. Valerie Ramsey. The second candidate this evening vying for the Board of Education is Ms. Judy Edwards. And then the third person vying for the candidacy of District 5 Board of Education, Mr. David Whittemore. All right, we're going to ask the pastor of the First Wesleyan Church of Easley if he would come forward and lead us in prayer. And after that, the Pledge of Allegiance. We'd ask you to stand, please.
It is so good to have you here tonight, and we hope that you will be informed after tonight. Let's pray together. Father, we do thank you for this opportunity that we have. We live in a free country where we can choose our leaders. We thank you for that opportunity. Father, we pray tonight that you will help us to see what we need to see, that you will help the speakers to speak truth, and that they will speak what they know and how you lead them. And Father, I pray for this nation. I pray that you will help us to bend a knee to you, for you are God, and we are yours. Father, help us to be a nation that will come back to you, humble ourselves, and call truth, and live it. We thank you for this time. Bless each one that's here tonight, and may ye be honored. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Now let's turn and say our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You may be seated.
Thank you. We would like to express our appreciation to the First Wesleyan Church here in Easley for their kindly letting us use these facilities, and also all the equipment that we're able to get this live streaming and on YouTube. We appreciate also everyone that had a part, big or small, in putting this event together. There's more goes into something like this than most people really realize, but we appreciate everyone that had a part. And we also appreciate everyone that's here. And we appreciate the news media that has come out and to give us some write-up. So we appreciate that also. Now, we want to give you just a little information about this debate. The opening statements will be 2 minutes long by each candidate. The questions will be 2 minutes long. The closing statements will be 2 minutes long. Once we're into the question 1.5 minutes, we should see a yellow. Got a yellow? You gonna do a green? Okay, hold the green up. When you see the green, you know that you've got 30 seconds left. Okay? When you see the red, you know your time's up. You don't want me to tell you to shut up now. You just don't want me. Anyway, we've done everything in a random fashion. We've had questions submitted by different organizations, and then we asked audience members to vote on the 3 from each organization that they thought had the most merit. That's the questions that will be asked, the ones that got the most votes. And then, of course, their seating arrangement was determined by a drawing. The candidates' arrangement here on the platform was arranged by a drawing, and those that go first with opening statements and so forth, all that was done by a drawing, trying to keep everything fair and square. Now, after we get through with the panelist portion of the event, we'll have about a 7 or 8 minute intermission. The candidates can mingle amongst the people, shake hands and talk a little bit. Then we will be returning to an audience participation portion of this event, where we will let members of the audience ask questions of the candidates. One candidate will be on the stage or the platform at a time. I will be up here. There will be 2 gentlemen with microphones that go around and let you ask your question. We ask that the questions be concise and brief as possible. Now, when the panelists, getting back to the panelists, when they ask a question, it is not to be specific to any one candidate. All 3 candidates will get to answer every question. So we're not targeting anyone like that. So we appreciate again your presence after this event is over. There will be a little offering plate out there. You know you always got to ask for an offering in the church. You've got to always do that. You know that, don't you, Mara? You know all about that. All right. Whatever comes in will go to the church here for the use of their facilities. We appreciate you participating in that. And after the event is over, you have opportunity once again speak with these candidates, talk with them. We're not going to rush anyone out. We want you to take your time. Again, we do appreciate your presence. We're glad you're here. We trust you'll learn a lot, and you'll be a better informed individual when you go to the voting booth this November the 6th. I want to remind you that one of these 3 individuals will be the District 5 board member. So prayerfully consider each one, listen to what they have to say, and make an informed choice. Now, we'll get right into it, not waste any time. We're going to let Ms. Ramsey begin with an opening statement.
Good evening. Good evening. I'm Valerie Ramsey, and I want to thank each of you for being here, and thank you for this opportunity to tell you a little bit about myself and why I'm running for this seat. I'm born and raised here in Easley, went through schools here, and I like to say that I was a PhD when I was 16. Having grown up in poverty and illiteracy here in Easley, I dropped out in the 10th grade to have a baby. That was no big deal. That was nothing strange. It was what I'd always known throughout my family history. But what was different was that I went back to school and completed my high school diploma. I didn't know what college was growing up. And once I discovered what it was, I fell in love with learning. And education has really been my passion. Once I saw what education did in my life, the primary reason that I'm running for this seat is because I believe that I was divinely inspired to do so. And I asked God for confirmation time and time again, even when I knew He was telling me this is what I needed to do. I believe I have something to offer. There are a lot of children in our county that are being left behind. We have a lot to be proud of in our county. But I would like to be involved out there in the community, supporting our superintendent, inspiring, and I don't think that we can do it without parents' involvement. So I would like to reignite the passion in parents to have a zero tolerance about dropping out of school with their children.
Was that correct? Okay. Ms. Edwards.
Good evening. I'm very glad to be here and appreciate all of you taking your time to be here tonight. I have served on the school board for the past 4 years and have enjoyed it very much, and I appreciate the opportunity to do so. I feel that having served on the school board, I do have an advantage, and I feel like I have a rapport with the board members who are there, since our district is the only district that has someone running against them. So I feel like I do have an advantage in that I know the board members that are there. I have worked with them. I understand the workings of the board, and I understand the workings of the district. I also feel like being a 30-year career teacher, because I taught for 30 years in Pickens County, and I feel like I know the going-ons of the school and the things, the way we do things, and the way the teachers feel. I feel like I have a very close relationship with the teachers because of that, because they feel like they can talk to me. I also have a daughter and a son-in-law who teach in the Pickens County schools, and they keep me informed. I also have 4 grandchildren who attend the Easley schools, and they always keep me very informed. My husband was co-owner of Alexander Drug Company for 25 years, and I had a business for 3 years after I retired, so I feel like I'm also familiar with the business aspect of Pickens County. So I feel like these things help me to understand what we need and what's going on in Pickens County and what our children need.
All right. Mr. Whittemore.
Good evening. I'm glad to be here and glad y'all are here. I know it's a lot going on in the evenings. Let me tell you a little bit about myself first. I grew up here in Easley and attended Easley Public Schools and went on to Clemson. My 2 adult children, Fritz and Elizabeth, both were educated in Easley schools and went on to Presbyterian College, and my son Matthew, who is here too, is in the 6th grade at Gettys, and he's likewise in the public schools. My family, my wife Cindy is a teacher at Gettys Middle, so I have a little bit of connection with the education there, having a child in school and having a school teacher wife. Experience-wise, I'm a small business owner. I've been in the insurance field for 37 years, and I feel like business experience is important to be on the board. I retired from Easley City Council. I served 19 years and 3 terms as Mayor Pro Tem, and served on a number of committees there: police, fire, recreation, finance. I was Secretary-Treasurer of the Pickens County Municipal Association for 18 years. Currently, I'm a member of the South Carolina State Education Oversight Committee in Columbia, and that's been the last couple of years, and that's been quite an experience going over 46 counties, 83 school districts, and all the things that go along with that. Likewise, I've been president of the United Way, driven for Meals on Wheels for 20 years, been president of the Chamber of Commerce, president of Rotary Club, board member of the YMCA, and a member presently of the School District of Pickens County Business Education Alliance. I'm a deacon at the Easley Presbyterian Church, been there all my life, and a member of the Easley Touchdown Club.
All right. Thank you. That concludes the opening remarks. The first question will be brought by Ms. Debbie Spall. Oh.
Since the U.S. Constitution does not give the federal government any power to dictate public education, should the state of South Carolina be free to establish its own education system? Explain.
Mr. Whittemore, the question is yours.
To establish their own education system. We have the school system that we have now, in my opinion, seems to be operating good as far as Pickens County and South Carolina are concerned. I am and I will continue to be an advocate of public education. I support the superintendent's goals of raising the graduation rate and balancing the budget with no tax increase and creating a program to adequately clean, maintain, and repair our buildings and grounds, and improving the quality of our management, teachers, and support staff. And I will ensure excellence in school board performance, holding all board members to the highest standards of ethics and appropriateness. I want to be on the Pickens County School Board because I believe in the Pickens County schools.
All right. I might say here, if you'd like a question repeated, we can allow for that. All right. Ms. Ramsey, that same question is yours.
I would ask you to repeat the question. Okay.
Since the U.S. Constitution does not give the federal government any power to dictate public education, should the state of South Carolina be free to establish its own education system? Explain.
I believe that within reason, yes, the state should have the power to do that. However, we are one United States, so I think that the dictates from a federal level down to the state, I think they should complement one another so that we don't all have so many different standards across these United States. But I do think the state should have that power to have its own system.
All right. The question is yours, Ms. Edwards.
I feel like the state of South Carolina, or any state, should have some rights to have their own voice in what their state does in education. I think we will always have some federal laws and some federal guidelines, and I do feel like that we have to have some. We receive quite a bit of federal money. I'm sure you've heard of Title I schools, and Title I schools have a lot of extra money, and that comes federal money. And when we take federal money, which we do quite a bit, then we're going to have some federal guidelines. It would be wonderful to be able to say, we as a state, we're going to operate totally on our own and not have to take any federal money. But it's been a long time since we've done that. You've probably heard recently of the Common Cores, which is coming down from the state, the federal, because they're wanting all states to be teaching and testing the same thing. And by having the Common Cores, they feel like we can compare our scores and what each one is doing in each state better than we do now. And there's a lot of questions about this because we're not sure this Common Core is exactly what we need. Every district is different, every state is different, so every child's needs are different, and every state's children's needs are different. So I feel like the state needs to have their opportunity to say what our children need in our state, but I think there will always be some federal guidelines because of the federal money.
All right, our next question will be coming from the Fraternal Order of the Police, Mr. Kirby.
Thank you, candidates. Do you favor, as a board member, a strong district level of school safety program? And if so, how will you ensure that such a program will be designed for and implemented in our school district at the district, school level, and how will it be evaluated?
All right, Ms. Edwards, the question is yours.
Would you repeat, what do you mean by a safety program? Would you explain that?
Yes, ma'am. In the aspect of, and I would say more into the roles of the school resource officer and your evaluation of how school safety is such a forefront, obviously, since the implementation of Columbine and things such of that nature that have occurred across the country with school violence and the escalation of that. How do you feel your role as a board member would affect that, and how would you pass that down from your level down to the schools to the individual levels as far as that goes?
Okay. I of course feel like the safety of our children is priority, as well as their education, but having their safety. And I feel like with our new schools that we have implemented a lot of safety precautions, a lot of different, such as the schools now, and I think we can thank Mr. Bob Foltman for this, but the schools, when we enter a school, we enter into an area of where they cannot come into that school without going past someone, so that everyone knows when someone's coming into the schools. And we have had to change a lot of our schools to make it that way, because our schools were not that way before because of things that have happened. So I do feel like safety is very, very important, and we need to be aware as board members to be sure that our schools are carrying out. The resource officers, we have tried as board members to be sure that we can keep resource officers where the schools feel like they need them. So I do feel like safety is extremely important, and we have to do as board members whatever we need to do to make sure our children are kept safe.
All right. I notice most of you aren't using your 2 minutes. Don't shortchange yourself. Feel free to use your full 2 minutes. That same question is for Mr. Whittemore.
I stuck my hand on this thing and it almost hit the ground.
Yeah.
A minute ago, so I
Don't-
can't lean on it. I'm used to leaning on things.
Yeah.
The SROs that the schools have now are all excellent. I think they should set a wonderful example, should mix and mingle with the students. Between them, the teachers, the parents, the administration should nip some things in the bud, and a good student resource officer, school resource officer should do their best to really infiltrate themselves in the school. As far as safety goes, and we have got, those of y'all who are fortunate enough to have been in these new schools, they are really nice. They have areas where you can't get in trouble. They don't have the lockers, the nooks and crannies, and places where trouble can occur. You're pretty much confined to the inside of the school. They have cameras everywhere, and so they film just about everything. So I think as far as the safety goes, and everybody's doing their job, that we're in pretty good shape, safety, as far as here in Pickens County. And I'm very pleased with particularly the construction of the new schools and how they handled it.
All right. Ms. Ramsey, the question's yours.
Yes, I think every child deserves the right to have a safe environment when they go to school, and parents should not have to worry that their children are not safe. With these new schools, we should have the card access for entry into these buildings. I think as a board member's primary responsibility, other than hiring a superintendent, is setting policy. But I don't think that policy making should be done in a vacuum. To know what kind of policies we really need in our communities, we do need to have partnerships with law enforcement to find out what are some of the issues going on in our communities. Because although we've not had a Columbine situation in our schools in Pickens County, it only takes one incident to do that. And there are a lot of things going around in our communities that we might not be aware of as a school official. So I think having those relationships with law enforcement in the community, as well as parents, having them involved, and business leaders throughout the community to understand what the safety issues are out there. What are the issues, what are the things that our children could be susceptible to in order to set those policies. And then once the policies are set at the board level, of course they're communicated through the superintendent down to the principals and into the individual schools, communicated out to the parents and all of the community involved. It will take a whole community of us to ensure that our children are in a safe learning environment.
All right, our next question will come from Ms. Morris, representing the parenting place.
There's a lot of information out there on the cost of educating students. What is the cost of educating a student in Pickens County? And do you think this is too low or too high of an amount per student for the county?
All right, Ms. Ramsey, the question is yours.
Would you repeat the question, please?
Okay. What is the cost of educating a student in Pickens County? And do you think this is too low or too high, and why?
I am not exactly sure what the cost is, but whatever it costs, it's hard to place a value on educating our children. So whatever it costs, we need to be willing to pay to get our children educated. It costs a whole lot more to have them walking around ignorant. A lot of parents are struggling with what it costs now, but it's only going to continue to rise in cost, and we have to be willing to make every sacrifice to educate our children. So whatever that cost is, and I do not know what the per pupil dollar amount is. I do know that it has declined over the years due to the economic downturn. But again, we cannot put a value on educating our children. Ignorance is a lot more costly than that.
All right, Ms. Edwards, the question is yours.
As Valerie says, there is no price when it comes to education. We cannot put a price on it, but if we go to what the state gives us, which I'm thinking is what you're asking, as far as what we get as per student costs from the state, this year we got $2,012 per student. So I guess you would say that's the cost, or that's what we get, but is that enough? No, it is not. Not to do everything that we would like to do for them. As with Act 388, which changed our taxing system, in the Act 388, the legislatures told us that the hope was that we would have $2,500 per pupil. 2008 and 9, I think, it began. I don't think we've ever reached $2,500 per pupil. 2008 and 9, it began to go down, and it's gone down ever since. Now, it is up a little bit this year. Last year we got $1,877, I think. This year we got $2,012. And like I say, that's from the state. That's what we get from the state. We have other dollars who come in from the federal. There are so many programs and so many ways to help children that you cannot put a dollar tag on. And so many extra things that are done for children. So trying to put a dollar tag on it and saying that we have enough money, I don't think we ever have enough, because there are always more things we want to do for them. And more things that we could do for them if we had more money. More teachers. We would love to have more teachers. We would love to have smaller classes, but we can't because we can't afford it because of the money. So there are always things that we would like to increase and to do more for them that because of dollar signs we can't.
All right, Mr. Whittemore, the question is yours.
As far as the cost per student, it does fluctuate based on the tax base. And one thing about the economic situation that we've got going on now, hopefully we'll be out of the recession sometime. Things will get better, and that'll increase the tax base, which will increase the money coming into the school. We'll have more construction going on and things of that nature. And I think with all of that going on, There are so many programs that need more money. Some classes are too large. We don't offer some classes that should be offered. There are non-revenue and revenue sports that are very important in the scheme of things, which do so much for people when they're in school. After-school programs are very important. Playing sports and being in the band and doing things like that are extremely important. So all these things cost money. I know I read today that the band needed quite a bit of money. He's the high school band for instruments due to the fact that the instruments they had, some of them were so broken that they wouldn't even play. So hopefully things will get better and we'll get more money per student and more money in general to be able to expand on the curriculum and the per student rate.
All right. Our next question will come from the Business Education Alliance. Mr. Arnett.
Thank you, sir. How would you address budget shortfalls pertaining to the Pickens County Career and Technology Center? And would you be in favor of continuing to lower supply budgets?
To lower what?
The supply budgets.
Mr. Whittemore, the question is yours.
I think at the last meeting of the Business Alliance came up that we had old milling machines and things like that at the new Career Center that came from Skelton, and we needed approximately $2 million, if I'm not correct, to correct that. And people need to realize that a lot of this doesn't come from tax money. A lot of it comes from private money. And so in this area, we need to continue a public-private relationship with our businesses and with our industry. And with that, hopefully they're going to get some machinery, the robotics and all the things that are going on at the Career Center. And if you haven't seen the Career Center, it is a sight to behold. It is just beautiful. But they do need some equipment in there updated because they moved some from the Skelton Center. Again, we've got a good giving community of people. We've got business people that sit on this Business Alliance, which I also sit on, and it's the generosity of the particularly certain ones, and some of we got plants coming in from out of state, and they're doing everything they can to train people to get jobs. And all this is about jobs. We need to educate these kids so they can get out of school and get a job and start a family and do what their parents are doing. And so with that, I'll close.
All right, Ms. Ramsey, the question's yours.
The Career Center serves a great purpose, a great role in our school system. And I didn't mention in my opening statement that I am retired from Clemson University with 33 years as Chief Business Officer for the College of Health Education and Human Development. So I have had my share of budgets and budget cuts. And most businesses or agencies, the budget is primarily made up of salaries and wages and benefits. So the supply budget is already small to begin with. Budgets have to be cut at times, but I think given the Career Center and thinking about our children being educated, that not all of them are going to go to a four-year college and get a degree. Many of them are going to go into a technical skill or a trade. And if they can start that at the Career Center before they go to, say, Tri-County Technical College or some other technical college to further their skills, rather than going and sitting for 4 years to get a degree, I think the partnerships with the businesses and industries out in our community are critical to having those relationships. If we need supplies, the best thing to do is to partner with those so that we're training workers that could possibly go to work for them.
All right, Ms. Edwards, the question is yours.
I feel like the Career Center, as we have said, is valuable to our students. I would like to see our Career Center become more into technical and training our students for jobs to go out into the world. I think we need to push it even more, of having these children being trained for jobs, those children who aren't going to go to college, because there are a lot who aren't, and they want to go out into the world with skills to start their job. And I think we need to work harder at making sure that our Career Center does that for our children. We, with the Career Center, we of course have to partner with our businesses. If we do not, then we really don't know where our children need to be trained to get the jobs that are in our area. So we have to do that, and we hope that our businesses will help us. In every school, there's a supply shortage right now, because a lot of places that we have cut have been supplies. One year, our teachers went without any supply money at all. The state normally gives a $275 card for teachers. One year we had to do away with that and use it some other place. This year we were able to put that back, which I'm glad that we were. Teachers spend an awful lot themselves on their supplies. And of course you're probably talking about machinery and different things like that for the Career Center, which just like other schools that want more computers, they want more of everything, because we have had to cut so much in the past 4 or 5 years. So I feel like we have to do what we can for all our schools, including the Career Center, to help our children be prepared for whatever they do, whether it's going off to college or whether it's to get a job.
All right, our next question comes from Americans for Prosperity, Ms. Spall.
Do you think parents and students should have choices of types of schools? And if so, should they be financially supported in choosing the type of school to attend, as with tax deductions for the parents or corporate scholarships, that sort of thing?
All right, that question is for Ms. Edwards.
Now, you said types of schools. Are you talking like charter schools, or are you talking about different
Charter
schools in different
schools,
areas, or what?
Private schools, special schools for, some schools now just, have boys' schools or girls' schools, that sort of thing.
All right, would you
They're all
repeat-
different types of schools that you
All right,
can
would you
have.
repeat the question now,
Sure.
please?
Do you think parents and students should have choices of types of schools? And if so, should they be financially supported in choosing the type of school to attend, as with tax deduction for the parents, or a lot of states now are having corporate scholarships. Corporations, give scholarship money so children, underprivileged children, can go to a certain private school or whatever.
Right. I think every parent should have a choice as far as where they want their child to go. I mean, that is our choice. That is America. If you want your child to go to another school, to another type of school. We have school choice in Pickens County as far as going to different area schools as long as there's room. Do I feel like that it should be supported with tax money? Not really. Simply because I think that unless we can work out something that's very, very equal, not everybody can afford to have a choice, because they can't necessarily afford to get there. And when we even have a charter school, it takes money away from the public schools. Anytime you do a special type of school like that, it's going to take money away from the public schools. Not everybody can have their choice and go somewhere else. Everybody can come to a public school. Everybody is guaranteed a free public education if they want it in the public schools. That's part of our state constitution. So I feel like we need to put the majority of our money there, because that's where the majority of our children are going to go, and we need to make sure that everybody has that equal opportunity.
All right, Mr. Whittemer, the question is yours.
We have freedom of choice as far as going to schools if they're available here in Pickens County now. When we get into charter schools, it does take money away from the Pickens County schools. And when you're talking about different vouchers and all that, you get into the General Assembly in Columbia, and they've bounced around one thing after another. But I think what we've got with the money we've got is adequate. I want to go back to the Career Center. It's about jobs. We're trying to train people for jobs. Not everybody's going to go to college, and we've got some tremendous opportunities that are available for people, not only at the Career Center, but at other places if you just choose them. I choose the Career Center and mention that because Ray Farley with the Pickens County Alliance, Economic Development arm of the county, will quick tell you that people can get out of that Career Center and make $50,000 doing a job their first year. And some of them have made as much as $80,000 being a welder or something like that. So I think we need to look at more of those ways. And we do have choice where you can choose schools anyhow.
All right, Ms. Ramsey, the question is yours.
Public education is the backbone of this country. I think parents should have a choice, however. I do not believe that they should get any special tax breaks if they choose to send their children to a charter school or some other school that's more costly, but I do think they have that choice. And as taxpayers, I know that's an argument that they should be able to get some kind of a tax break or tax deduction, but again, it's their choice. I think just as if you're choosing a post-secondary school and you choose to go to a private college, you're going to pay more to go there, but it's your choice. So I don't think that we should prohibit parents from wanting to do that if they think that's where their children will flourish. I happen to think public education is a wonderful thing, and I think we've kind of given up on it when it is really, most of us came through public education, and I think that if we all get on board, we can make it flourish again so that we don't look at public education as the stepchild of the educational system. But again, I would not dare to take away a parent's choice to do that.
All right. Our next question will come from the Fraternal Order of the Police, Mr. Kirby.
Thank you. In regards to my previous question regarding school safety program in our schools, what do you perceive the role of the school resource officer is in the implementation of that school safety program?
All right, Ms. Ramsey, the question is yours.
Wow, that's a great question. I don't think that there is some prescribed formula that is going to address every area of an enforcement officer there at the school, because we don't know the issues that we're dealing with. I think protecting the child from themselves and from protecting them from hurting others, I think you have to work with the law enforcement center to know what the boundaries are. Make sure they're trained, make sure the ones they're supposed to be protecting are trained. Be transparent about the whole process of how the security system and the policies are put in place. But I don't think that there's some magic formula to enact the safety of a school. I think a lot of it is governed by the culture that the school is in. I think a lot of it is governed by the problems that you've experienced or things that you see happening in the community. So I think it requires a lot of forethought and a lot of involvement from the entire community to have an effective security program.
All right, Ms. Edwards, the question is yours.
I feel like the resource officers are valuable to our students. I think probably the greatest value to them is to know your students, that hopefully our resource officers are there several years, that we don't have to change quite often so that they get to know the students. Resource officers, being our police officers, should be able to identify problems such as gangs, that you see things that you see the children doing, that you realize, okay, this may be a problem, this may be something that's coming up that teachers don't always recognize because we're not out there and see the things that you see. Drugs, you may see something that you realize that a child is doing that may indicate to you or to the resource officer that there are drugs involved. And I think having someone there that knows those problems and can recognize them, and yet can be a friend to our students, that they realize this person is there to help you. They're not there to discipline you. They're not there to hurt you. They're there to help you. They're there to protect you. And so that they feel like they can go to that resource officer if they do have a problem or if they see a problem. I think sometimes our children feel threatened. And if they do feel threatened by anyone or anything in our schools, or maybe someone from outside approaching them, that they feel like they can go to this resource officer and say to him or to her, you know, there's a problem and I need your help. And I think sometimes just the appearance of that officer being there, just being in the halls, says a lot to the students and keeps a lot of children from doing things that they might do otherwise, but they won't do because that officer's there. So I think they're also valuable in that way.
All right, Mr. Whittemore, the question is yours.
When we talk about school resource officers, I remember when I was on city council, we were starting to implement these things in the schools. There was a big hoopla about who was going to pay for it, because you have salaries involved. There was never a question about the need for the officers being in the schools, and so far they've done just a wonderful job. We've had changes here and there, but going outside the school, as far as trouble that can happen inside the school, the cooperation between the county law enforcement agencies is imperative. And I mean the sheriff's office, the Easley police, in this particular case, need to work just like this. I think they can talk to each other now on the radio, I hope, after 9/11. That is important. The community policing aspect is important. They know what's going on. They can detect gangs and all, and they can work with the schools as far as identifying and trying to stop some of these things before they get started. We have excellent officers that I've met in the schools, and I think there's no doubt about it, they're worth every dime that they've got, and they keep their eyes and ears open, and they work with the teachers and the administrators and do a great job.
All right, we're halfway through the questions. We'll move right along. Our next question comes from the parenting place, Ms. Morris.
Okay. The United States has been ranked as low as 27th in the world in math and science. How can our Pickens County schools improve our math and science scores for both males and females?
Mr. Whittemore, the question is yours.
Repeat that question, please.
Okay. The United States has been ranked as low as 27th in the world for our math and science scores. And math and science has always been an area that we have been weak in over the last decade. So how can Pickens County schools go beyond those state standards and improve our math and science scores for both males and females?
Well, that's an excellent question. I wish I had the answer to that. There'd be a lot of people that would be real happy. That's a hard one.
It's hard.
It's very hard. You get into STEM education and things of this nature. I think they're trying to, again, it's all about money, and you're trying to add the proper courses, put the proper emphasis on people that want to get into various aspects of science or possibly engineering and things of that nature. Something that hadn't been said yet but so important is that if they can't read, they can't do anything. And so we need to have people starting at K4 read. Because when they get to the 8th grade and they can't read, then they're going to drop out sooner or later. So reading is extremely important. Our superintendent just made a comment about that you could get a kindergarten teacher and she could pick out, or he could pick out right now, the students that probably would not make it based on the fact that they can just tell about their reading skills and everything. So we need to have remedial reading immediately.
All right, Ms. Ramsey, the question is yours.
Just as Mr. Whittemore talked about STEM education, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, I think the focus that we have in this country is on STEM. However, we need to get back to the root, which is reading, writing, and arithmetic. Because like you said, if you can't read, you can't do the math, you can't do the science. There are some schools that are trying out single gender education to improve some areas for males versus females. I'm not sure how I feel about that, but I think there are some best practices in this country. And I think we need to search for those best practices of how to increase the learning of girls as well as the boys in science and mathematics. Those are critical. But again, I think we need to focus. We need to get back to the basics. I mean, we should not be graduating students that can't read. That doesn't make any sense. They may be good at math. There may be something they're gifted at. There are a lot of best practices. I think that the global issue of the United States and where it's slipping is not just slipping in science and math. We're slipping all over the place. And that's why when I said I'm running for this seat, I'm not just running for for Easley. I'm running for the whole district, for Pickens County. Because our students are not just competing with other students for jobs in Pickens County. They're not just competing for jobs with other students in South Carolina. This is a global issue, and we've got to address it here, but it starts at home. So we think globally and act locally.
All right, Ms. Edwards, the question is yours.
Well, as David said, if we had the answer, we'd probably be president rather than running for the Pickens County School Board, because that's been a question that's been all over the United States for a long time. I wish we did have the answer. I do feel like that in Pickens County we have tried to stress the math and the sciences. I feel like in our middle schools, and of course as both candidates have said, we've got to get back to the basics because you've got to read. But those who are interested in the math and the sciences, and that's where it comes when they get to the point that we know they are the ones who are interested in math and science and that we can push them forward. Very often I feel like sometimes at our middle school we hold our students back. We want the honors classes, and we want these students who are good in math and science to take the honors classes, and yet sometimes we hold them back because we don't want to have those classes too large. And it all comes back to money again. If we had the money to add more teachers so that we could have more classes, so that we could have more honors classes, lots of times students who are very, very good in math or very, very good in science, they may not quite make that honors class because of one test that's given. And I think we have to stop and look at those tests that we give and say, you know, is this going to determine this child's life, or should we be looking at everything they do to determine if they can go on in that honors class? Because sometimes in those honors classes, that's where those that are going to do the greatest things in the math and science, they really put forth their efforts and they move forward. And I really feel like we need to give them more opportunities in those areas. The robotics and the things that are at the Career Center, those kind of things that we can give to the students so that they have more opportunities to do different things in math and science. And I think the more that we can give them in those areas, the better it is.
All right. Our next question comes from the Business Education Alliance. Mr. Arnett.
With the state getting ready to roll out the new work-ready communities, and given the need for more work-ready applicants and high-skilled jobs, how would you affect change within the school district to provide local business with more work-ready applicants?
Ms. Edwards, the question is yours.
Now, how would you repeat that? How would you,
The state's rolling out the new Work-Ready Community Initiative October 1st.
okay.
And given the need for more work-ready applicants in high-skilled jobs, how would you affect change within the school district to provide local business with more work-ready applicants?
I would think at our career center, being able to have the businesses in, being able to invite them in to see our career center and to see what we offer for our students, to have our students meet with the businesses so that they can see what the business employers are looking for, so they will know what type of work to apply for. I'm thinking this is what you're talking about when you say work-related applicants, that they are applying for the type of work that they are suited towards. And I think having the business people in to even talk to the classes and say, these are the type of workers we need, these are the type of things you need to know how to do, these are the type of jobs that we have, so that the students know what's out there for them. And they know which area to apply in because they know which area, that's where their interest is, and that's where a businessman has the opportunities for those areas.
All right, Mr. Whittemore, the question is yours.
Someone told me in Charleston, they were talking to an official from Boeing, and the question that the man had to the Boeing official was, how many planes are y'all gonna make each year? And he answered that with, we'll make as many planes as people that you can get us to make them. And where we are is we need to work with the manufacturing and business community to find out what the needs are out there, and get these students at the Career Center and places like that, but particularly the Career Center, certified in certain areas so they're ready to go to work and they've already passed the necessary tests that they need to go immediately into the workforce and immediately start making good money. And there is and very good money to be made. Some people think you have to go to college. Back in the 50s, I guess you went to college, you major in anything, and you get a job. Not anymore. So it's the technical education, and I keep raving about the Career Center. I think working with the economic development arm of Pickens County and Mr. Farley, and dealing with these companies like Reliance and some of those that have come in, they have told us what they need as far as workforce. They can't bring, nor do they want to bring, a whole workforce down. The whole idea is to come down here and put people to work and have skilled labor. So we need to work with the industry. We need to work with economic development and get those jobs.
All right, Ms. Ramsey, the question is yours.
Intellectual capital is one of our greatest imports, unfortunately. I served on Tri-County Technical College's board for 6 years, and that's what they're all about, is working with businesses and industry to train in the skilled areas to meet the needs of companies that are moving here. But because of the slow nature of change in education, we're already behind the curve. It takes a while to get the programs, the curriculum in place, to know what it is that we need to do. So we cannot do it without having a close partnership with the businesses. And I think for the Career Center, a close relationship with Tri-County Technical College, which is just down the road. I think that, as I pointed out earlier, that not all the students are gonna go and get a degree, they're gonna get a skill. And that can begin right there at the Career Center. And so, you mentioned Boeing, some of the other BMW, some of the other partnerships that are coming in to get a certification through some kind of a partnership with Tri-County Technical College to take it beyond just a post-secondary level. I think there are a lot of jobs where we don't have the skills to fill those jobs. And I think we've got to begin to do that. The career cluster thing that we're doing in the state, I think it needs to start a whole lot earlier, 4th grade perhaps. And they don't have to wait till they get to high school to go over to the Career Center. I think we need to start sending those children who have already identified something they want to do early on, send them to the Career Center at an early age and let them begin to build that skill. And then perhaps they'll want to go from the Career Center over to Tri-County to get a certification if we can't have a partnership to do a certification with the Career Center that is signed off on by Tri-County.
All right, our next question comes from Americans for Prosperity, Ms. Spall.
At the July 25th School District of Pickens County Board meeting, the board members passed Chairman Alex Sada's motion that the balance in the unused interest funds, which was over $13 million, be given back to the taxpayers in the form of paying down bond debt. Now, some of the members wanted to spend the $13 million on various projects. So how would you have voted on this? Spend the $13 million or give it back to the taxpayers in the form of paying down bond debt?
Ms. Ramsey, the question's yours.
And it sounds like such a simple question, but it's not. And given that I was not on the board, it would be hard for me to answer that question with any authority per se. I believe that I'm a situational leader, and I would have to know the information involved around the $13 million. Where did it come from? What was the intended purpose of it? At the same time, I don't believe that you should make permanent commitments on temporary money either. If the $13 million built up over a period of time, I don't think that you could take non-recurring funds and use it to fund something that is recurring. You don't make permanent decisions on temporary money. But again, given that I was not on the board with that decision, I think if it belonged to the taxpayers and it was funds that were over-collected for a period of time, then I think they should be returned to the taxpayers. Unless there is some plan, some need that has that have been there, some goal that the district needed to implement that the funds could be used for that would not require recurring funds.
All right, Ms. Edwards, the question is yours.
All right, being on the board at that time, and I did vote against returning that money at that time, and the reason that I did is because I felt like it was a premature vote. That money is part of the building program money that is extra that's left, and it cannot be touched for 2 years until the building program is completely finished. It can only be used for building purposes, construction or repairs. It cannot be used for anything else. I felt like that voting for it at that time, 2 years before we know what's down the road, was premature. We couldn't do anything with it anyway, so why not wait until we see what's down the road? We have roofs that need fixing. We have lots of things going wrong in the schools that are going to have to be fixed that we have no money set aside right now to do. So we don't know how those things are going to be fixed. We don't know what money is going to come from the state in the next 2 years. We don't have any idea what's going to happen. We don't know that a hurricane's not going to blow through here and blow 3 roofs off of our schools. What happens when it does and we have no money to fix it? So I felt like the vote was a premature vote and that we should have waited until that 2 years came to an end and we saw what we needed. And then if we needed that money for something to do repairs, then we may have to use it. If not, then it could be returned to the taxpayers. But I did not feel like that was the time for us to make that decision.
Mr. Whittemore, the question is yours.
I'm looking at Mr. Clark over there with the Taxpayers Association. That question came to me from them, and I said my answer to that was that I would not spend it and return it. And I stand by that. I'm not a tax attorney. I'm not a bond attorney. I don't know how all that was set up. But I have been in government before for quite a number of years. A few years back, that's been about 6 or 7 years since I've served in city council. And it sure is easy to spend other people's money, and these department heads can come up with ways that you wouldn't believe to spend money. So although I know we can have catastrophes and insurance companies have deductibles and all that, I think that the wise thing to do on that is if we came under, then we need to keep that money, return that money to the taxpayers, rework the bonds, lower it, not use it.
All right, our next question comes from the Fraternal Order of the Police, Mr. Kirby.
What accountability measures do you feel should be put in place at the district and school levels to ensure that school attendance is being aggressively enforced in conjunction with mandatory school attendance laws such as truancy and things of that nature?
Mr. Whittemore, the question is yours.
Now, that's a hard question. The school district used to have a truancy officer. I'm assuming that they still do. And I think at one time it was Mr. Ponder. And I don't know exactly what his job description was or how he went about his job, but I honestly don't have an answer to if you're not in school, a recording goes out to the household that you're not in school, and the parents or the guardians or whoever should be aware that they're not in school and keep them in. Possibly, I don't know how bad a problem this is here in Pickens County, not to being on the school board, but I would think that you could possibly involve your school resource officers to look over the daily rosters of who is out, who's continually been out. They may have to make some house calls.
All right, Ms. Ramsey, the question is yours.
Great question. I still come back to so much of what we want to have as accountability cannot happen without the parents. We can have all the truancy officers we want to have, but if the parents are not involved in this, it's not going to stop. One of my students last night in class, which I teach teachers who are working on their master's degrees, and they showed a video clip of a California school system where they were protesting because the truancy came with a fine. And the students were the ones that were getting the fines. And when they couldn't pay the fines, they were putting the students in jail. I don't think they should be jailing the parents or jailing the students, but we cannot, the school does not have that kind of power to control whether or not these students are going to come to school separate from the parents. They've got to be involved. I don't think that the resource officer can do it. I think some of the things they're doing in Greenville County to increase graduation, they're going around knocking on doors, say, you're not in school, where are you? We're coming to pick you up. But the parents have to be involved to address this problem.
All right, Ms. Edwards, the question is yours.
I think in Pickens County, we have a pretty good system in place right now. I think it's gotten better over the years. Parents are notified after a child has been absent 5 days from a class. They are then, and given a warning, the child's given a warning. They're also notified when a child has 10 days. And after 10 days, it's up to the district and the teacher as to whether or not that child can pass that class. If they have missed 10 days that's unexcused, then they can fail that class. So that's been an incentive. And they do have to have excuses for being out. They have to have doctor's excuses. They have to have written excuses. And as Valerie said, it has to come, the parents have to be behind us, and we have to be able to check on them. But it is better, I think, than it used to be. I think Mr. Ponder was very strong when he's there, and we still do have someone who checks on that. They do go to court with parents and with students. So I think our attendance in the past years has really improved because of the rule that after 10 absences, you can fail a class if you do not if the school does not agree to allow you to go on.
All right. Our next question comes from Ms. Morris from the parenting place.
At the parenting place, we struggle with this parent involvement because we are Prevent Child Abuse Pickens County. And it is a serious issue in our county. We are ranked number 3 for the highest rates of abuse and neglect in the entire state right now. Looking at our schools, do you feel that we could get more parent involvement if we could have a social worker at every one of our Title I schools to help with parents?
Mrs. Edwards, the question's yours.
Do I think it would be better if we had a social worker at everyone? Is that what you said? Okay.
And how can it improve that parent interaction and involvement with their child?
I feel like it would be better if we could have a social worker at every one of our schools in Pickens County. I would love to be able to have a social worker there to work with our children and with our teachers, because teachers are required by law to report anything that they see if they suspect any kind of abuse. Do they always feel comfortable doing this? No, they do not, because sometimes they are ridiculed, sometimes they are even accused themselves because they do this. So it becomes a very difficult problem for them. But a social worker that could go out and visit the homes, and we could start with Title I schools, which might be the best to start with, but it would be great to have one in every school. I wish our guidance counselors had more time to do more of that type of work than they do. Guidance counselors, and my master's was in guidance, so I would love to have been able to work with the students and the families, but you spend a lot of time of testing, you spend a lot of time with schedules, you spend a lot of time of doing everything except working with the students because we don't have the time. So it would be great if we could have a social worker in every school to work with those children that have those needs.
All right, Mr. Whittemore, the question is yours.
Well, I would agree that if it was financially possible, that it'd be wonderful to be able to have a social worker in each school. I learned when I was on council and rode with the police that Easley was no different than New York City. It had every problem that New York City had, just in smaller amounts. I was particularly astonished at the way some children lived, and at 3 a.m. you'd see them out unattended where mom and whatever, dad, whoever, weren't anywhere, and they were out playing in the dark, riding their little carts. You didn't mention the fact that, you know, a lot of children don't have parents. They live in a different situation. They may live with their grandparents or friends, or some of them. We've even got kids in this county that they're homeless. And people don't realize how many homeless we've got. The United Way can give you those figures, and it's astonishing and scary. I feel like we've got some schools that have mentoring programs. I think that if we can expand on mentoring programs, as far as some of these grammar schools particularly go, that would be just wonderful, and that doesn't cost anything. That's all volunteer.
All right, Ms. Ramsey, the question is yours.
I don't think that I support a social worker being at every school, because again, we are saddling the school with the accountability and the responsibility. It's got to start in the home. And I think when they leave the hospital with the baby, there ought to be some parenting classes going on in the hospital as they're leaving there. It's got to take place at home. The school can't do everything. And having a social worker there, I'm not sure, especially if it's going to come down to funding. Every time we want to implement something to make a change, if we got to put a dollar on it, we're never going to get anything done here. We've got to hold, parents have got to get involved. We got to inspire the parents to get involved and take responsibility for their children and work with the schools to educate their children. Let them know that you're on the same team. You're not working against one another. You're working with one another. And in a state where a minimally adequate education is something to be proud of, I mean, we're not going to fix this problem just throwing a dollar at it. We've got to put our hearts into it. We've got to get out there and get engaged in the community and ignite the passion in these parents, the same passion that their parents had when they were coming up. Because if the parent is not enthusiastic or does not value education in the home, they are not going to communicate that to their children. And so we're going to raise another generation that doesn't value education, and then they're going to have a generation, and this thing is going to spiral out of control, and no amount of money is going to fix this problem, and no school district in this world is going to be able to fix this problem unless we get into these homes and have these parents to start there.
All right, we come down to our last question, and it will come from Mr. Arnett with the Business Education Alliance.
Continuing on the same theme as my first two questions, how would you go about fostering more partnerships within Pickens County between the school district and local business?
All right, Ms. Ramsey, the question is yours.
I think that's where, as a board member, I could see myself being involved at that level. Like I said, having worked and served on the board at Tri-County Technical College for 6 years and being out in the community, meeting with different business partners, I think that's where it begins. The board would set policy, but I think the board does not set policy in a vacuum. It has to know, you don't set policy up here without some input here. It's not a top-down thing. It needs to be a bottom-up, where everybody is coming together as a community, getting the business partners involved, getting those partnerships. They want educated workers as well. Businesses don't want to move to South Carolina if there are no skilled workers here, and if there are no educated workers here. And research supports, especially with Tri-County Technical College and the 16 technical colleges, that 95% of the graduates stay in South Carolina when they're educated here, because they're educated around a need for a skill. But when we're having to bring in skilled labor to take jobs that are right here at home, we are missing the game of not getting out there early and ahead. We need to be knowing now what jobs are going to be, what skills are needed for jobs that are coming up for 2016, 2020. We need to already be getting curriculum in place to educate these children to be prepared. We can't prepare them after the company has already moved here. We need to be doing that now.
All right, Ms. Edwards, the question's yours.
I feel like, as I said before, meeting with the businesses in the area. I think it's wonderful that we now have Tri-County Tech so close within the Easley area that we can have businesses to meet with the students, to meet with the district, to meet with the board, and to let us know, to meet with our career center, and to let them know what jobs are going to be available, what's going to be needed in our area, and to prepare our students. I do think our career center, we are going to have to move more towards jobs like that and training our students to go out to find jobs. I think sometimes we move a little too far ahead at our career center in that we want to prepare them in the maths and the sciences and doing advanced things, and that's great too, and our career center has done wonderful in doing that. But I do feel like we have got to get back to our career center to more of training them to specific jobs that are going to be available in our area. And I think we do that through the Business Alliance as far as knowing what's going to be here and what is here. And we do that by having meetings with our board and meetings with our superintendent and our staff at the district office so that they know, and meetings with our career staff to know what's going to be available and what do our children, how do they need to be trained, what's going to be out there that's going to be available for them.
All right, Mr. Whittemore, the question is yours.
The cooperation between county government, city government, school board, businesses, all that, it takes all of that. It takes the economic arm, the alliance with Pickens County, Mr. Farley's group, Mr. Acker, to work together to recruit, and also, once it's recruited, find out well in advance what kind of skilled jobs are needed. And we need to, in a lot of cases, they're willing to partner and make those jobs possible. And the Career Center is the location for that. And I think there have been a number of instances where we've had some good partnerships of industries coming in the past years, where they've in advance told the chambers of commerce and everyone else exactly what kind of skilled worker they are needing, what kind of trained worker. We were a textile community here, and we all know what's happened there. And Tri-County Tech and a lot of them have done some excellent work as far as retraining people to get into other jobs. So I think it's a cooperative effort between everyone, including the school district, to get these skilled workers out there and get them certified so they can walk out the door with a certificate and they can go straight to work and make the money, raise that family, start living.
All right, that concludes the question portion of the event. And we didn't even have to have any rebuttals. They were real nice to one another, weren't they? All right, we're going to go right into the closing statements. They have 2 minutes for that. We begin with Ms. Edwards.
I would just like to thank you again for being here tonight and for having the opportunity. I have enjoyed serving on the school board. I feel like our board has worked very hard in the past 4 years. I feel like we have seen some success. I think our buildings here in the county that we have now, that our students are attending, that we have opened most of them, I think it shows that we are interested in our schools. I think it shows great progress, and I think our students are very proud of their new schools. Yes, it took some doing, and yes, it was a lot all at one time, and I wasn't there when the vote was made, but it's done now, and we want to make the best of it, and we want to be sure that our students enjoy it, and they appreciate it, and that they do their best to show what they can do in Pickens County. We have had great success with our testing. Our students have shown great success on the SAT. They came in second in the state. As far as the SAT scores, they came in first on the ACT scores. Our pass scores were up 2% this year. So we feel like our students are working very hard in that area. We've had great success at our Career Center, and our students there have shown great progress, so we feel like they're working very hard. We have been able to do the things we've done in the past year, especially by not raising taxes. When the other counties around us did raise taxes, we were able to give our teachers a raise this year, all employees a 2% raise, and give our teachers a step increase, which they had not had in 4 years. We had some teachers who had been here 4 years and on the same salary, and that was not good because they were looking at other places to go. Oconee, Greenville, Anderson 1 and 4 all raised taxes in order to do this. We did not have to do that this year, so we feel like that was a success, and I hope we can continue to be successful.
All right, Mr. Whittemore, your closing statement.
We're living in a growing area despite the recession and despite jobs going away. There are jobs coming in. Things do look better, particularly in this area. We're living in the I-85 corridor area, which has tremendous growth. The 123 corridor area, tremendous growth. Easley is a bedroom community primarily, but creates quite a large tax base. It hadn't been mentioned, but I want to represent Easley on the Pickens County School Board. I will certainly be a member of the Pickens County School Board, but I want to represent Easley. Easley is a large municipality, and it needs strong representation. And I want to see that we have that. The community as a whole is behind the school board, I feel. However, I think the school board can do a lot to better their image, as it has been in recent years. And I think I can help, hopefully, in communicating with other board members in trying to use the word compromise, which it hasn't been used, I don't think, as much as it should be. So I think we can also work to get the school board to have a little bit better reputation than it has in recent years and out of the newspapers.
All right, Ms. Ramsey, your closing statement.
The primary thing that I want to do as a board member is to focus not just on increasing the graduation rate, but I want to increase the number of graduates who are ready to go to college, not just college eligible, but to be college ready when they do graduate. We have a lot to be proud of here in Pickens County in the test scores that we've made and how we place nationwide, but when we disaggregate those numbers, behind those numbers are still a large percentage of children who are not making the grade, who do not have a legacy of education in their families. I'm a first-generation high school graduate and a first-generation college graduate. Because of the work that I've done at Tri-County Tech and going from a high school dropout to a PhD at Clemson University, retiring there with 33 years working in business and being on the board and working in the business community. I chair the board for the United Way, so I'm involved in the community in terms of businesses and what is needed, what a business is looking for to move here. There's a lot of work that is yet to be done. We live in a wealthy county, but we have so many pockets of poverty. And my heart is for every child, not just for Easley, but this is one district. I'm as passionate about those children in Liberty as I am in Central and Clemson. I do want to be a voice for Easley, but I want to represent the entire county. And I would like to work on a board that is complementary of one another in that we have the same goal. I want to work with parents. I want to inspire them to get involved with their children's education. I want to support our superintendent as she goes out. If I can help with recruiting and drawing that talent to this county that will raise up each one of our children, because we're all in this together.
All right, let's give a hand to our panelists and candidates. All right, that concludes the debate portion of the event. We're going to take about a 5 to 7 minute little break, and restrooms are back there on the left. There's some restrooms through that door downstairs. We would encourage you to stay because the event is not over. In just a little while when we return, the candidates will take questions from the audience. So if you have a question you'd like to ask, be putting it together, concise, and to the point. We'll have a couple of gentlemen going around with microphones and give you the opportunity to ask questions. So hang around. Take a little break, shake hands with the candidates, and we'll be right back. And he'll try to be brief with his answers, as brief as possible. I know that's hard for a Southern gentleman to do, but all right. Someone have a question for Mr. Whitmer? Right there.
Junius, microphone.
Microphone.
Yeah. Oh, excuse me. All right, I thought I could carry on.
I'll hold it if I got to cut you off, Junius.
Okay. My question is this. The state constitution says in Article 11, Section 3, that the state is responsible for education and not the counties. Why are we paying for school districts 7 school districts, we're paying for their schools in addition to ours because they had enough sense to sue the state of South Carolina. Now, what do you think about that?
Is this on? I think it is. Okay. Okay. I don't know anything about 7 school districts suing the state. You tell me 7 school districts out of 83
7 out of 17 sued over the Greenville plan.
Oh, over the Greenville plan.
And the state is now paying for those 7 school districts, their school, which means that we're paying for them in Pickens County and ours too. I just wanted to know how you felt about that.
Well, the Greenville plan, that was a complicated thing that was flown through here so fast, everybody's head was spinning. I don't know the logistics is exactly how that thing was put together or came about. What you're talking about, I have no idea.
Most people don't.
I do not. I do not.
All right, someone else have a question? There's a lady right there.
Ask me an easy one.
We've heard a great deal tonight about the budget and the economy. But even when the economy is flourishing, budgets fluctuate. What unique and creative ideas do you have that the board can implement to help our schools regardless of state funding and regardless of budget?
Well, the budgets are going to fluctuate. I mean, the amount of money coming in is going to fluctuate. There's no doubt about it. When they changed the way that money was coming in a few years ago, and then all of a sudden the bubble burst and sales tax went down and all that, which everybody was warned against. That could happen, and it did. Hopefully we can dig out of that. And with the after we get out of this recession, which is going to take a number of years, goodness, don't know how many years, but hopefully we're going to be going higher and higher and higher, and not going to get in one of these situations where we're going to be going down. So conservative budgeting is where it needs to be, and we don't need to live above our means and don't need to spend on anything that's any non-recurring money coming in on recurring cost as far as that goes. But I'm greatly optimistic that things are going to get better around here, and when they do, there'll be more money for all the government entities, and hopefully we'll be doing away with the layoffs and hiring more people and doing things like that too. And that's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's just a matter of how long. We've got buildings started. We've got a lot of things going on. It probably doesn't answer your question, but that's the best I can do. It's a good question.
All right, someone else have a question for Mr. Fenimore? All right, there on the back.
I've got a much more simple question for you. What should be the name of the new middle school in Easley?
The new middle school in Easley, as far as I'm concerned, the first name that comes up if you named it after a person would be Bryce Middle School. Mr. Bryce was a pioneer in education, and he just did so much. They had Bryce Field, but I got a feeling that's going to go to the city eventually, and so there'll be nothing left to remember him by. They got the Scott Auditorium. If not, I got no problem with Easley Middle. No problem whatsoever.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Ms. Edwards. While she's coming, who has a question for her? All right, right there.
Currently, there's an alternative school that's located in Easley where the Simpson Academy is. And basically, that school is known to take in students who have disciplinary problems in the regular school. As a current school board member, approximately how many times have you had a chance to visit that school? And number two, what could you do to recommend that the same attention is given to that school as is given to the regular schools?
I've been to Simpson several times. Matter of fact, I spent 1 year teaching at Simpson, but it was a different makeup then. It's changed a lot since then with our new. As a board member, as a board member, I really can't tell you how many. I'd say 5, 6. I really don't know exactly how many. I've been there several times, but I couldn't tell you exactly how many. I feel like that we give attention to Simpson. It's a very hard program to decide exactly what is the best way to do it. And we've discussed this many times as far as should we have it there or should it be back in the schools with, we have some special programs back in our schools. Should we put it back in the schools? Is it better for the kids to be separated or is it better for them to be in their class? There's a lot of questions that comes down with Simpson. I think our program has been more successful in the last 3 or 4 years than it was before with the changes that we've made. I think with the new leadership that we have this year, I think I have seen some changes that I feel like are going to be good. I feel like the changes because for a while, it was mostly children who had discipline problems. And you're putting all the children that have discipline problems in one place. That usually does not work, at least in my opinion, because they have no one to model after except someone who also has a discipline problem. So I feel like the way we're doing it now, which is more of they have problems and they have problems making it in the regular schools, but it's not always discipline. And I feel like they have more of an opportunity to get extra help there and to help them get back on the road and be able to get back into their regular schools. Not to feel like they have to stay there forever, but to get back into the regular schools again. So, and how we can put more attention into it, I think, is just to keep plugging and to make sure our program continues to improve. Not to get worse, not to get smaller, but to improve and to see that our children are improving and that they are getting back in the schools.
All right.
Does that answer your question?
Someone else? All right.
Hi there.
I have to get my years straight. 6 years ago, I left Easley High School to accept a position at the district office as the language coordinator.
As what?
The language coordinator.
Okay.
2 years ago, I retired. 4 years ago, I retired, and currently teach at Southern Wesleyan. My question is, I have sat back over the years since I left the district office and watched that office become dismantled. No longer is there a coordinator of English language arts, science, math, social studies. And this concerns me because I left Easley High School, a place that is so dear to my heart. My blood is so green because I believed in that position and I knew that teachers needed help. And now that help has been removed. And my concern is there a move to put those positions back into place?
Not to my knowledge. We looked at that for a long, long time. It was the feeling of most of the teachers and the administrators that those positions were not as valuable as we thought they were or would be, and as the money warranted. I will tell you, Kim, very truthfully, I have had people say to me, since Kim left, we haven't had any help. So that goes to you, and we say thank you. But no, to my knowledge right now, there is not a plan to do that.
All right, thank you, Ms. Evans. All right, Ms. Ramsey. As she's coming, does someone have a question for her? All right.
I'd like to make a follow-up to the first question that was asked of Mr. Whittemore. Pickens County voters turned down the building plan 2-1, yet the school board still went ahead and built the schools. Would you have been, if you had been sitting on the board, would you have been in favor of the entire building plan as it went through?
You know, it's hard for me to go back and think what I would have done had I been on the board, since I was not. But all these years later, I want to see us move beyond the new school buildings and start building anew the school children. We can't stay there. We got to move forward. The buildings are there, they're in place. We need to focus now on what takes place inside of those buildings.
All right, another question? Okay.
Hey, I wish I had had time to ask each one the same question. In the past year, I know you mentioned about how we've been in the newspapers a little bit much, and it's been quite embarrassing. And I'm just curious to know how you would proceed forward in working with the fellow board members and moving forward in a positive way and taking care of things in a fast, non-embarrassing way for us parents to have to explain to our children.
Wow. I can only be responsible for me. And what I'm willing to do as a board member is to go in with an open mind, take my ideas in, and that includes working with the parents. But my sole purpose is working with these children. You know, I'm not wanting to get bogged down in squabbles over the budget. We've always had budget problems because the state of South Carolina only has a certain amount of money in its budget. We're always going to have budget problems. And if the same concern about Social Security, of having the next generation that will pay in less money than the boomers paid in, then that is going to further impact. We've got to start coming up with ways that don't cost money to fund schools, because the money is not going to be there. And I think one of the issues in this state with the luxury tax that the Track Commission refused to address, because it's a big issue, until that is addressed, we're not going to have the revenue that we need. We've got to come up with new revenue streams to bring the funding in, or we've got to partner with businesses that will adopt a school. I mean, there are some things that we could do, but we've got to come up with some ways that, and not just lose focus on the money. It's the children that we're worried about, educating the children, and all this bureaucracy that we have. Just watching the documentary on Waiting for Superman, we're waiting on Superman to fly in and bring all the money in that we need to rescue the children, where more money is not necessarily the answer, I don't believe. I think it's more focus on the children. The focus on the money is causing us to lose focus on the children and their education. This is their future we're holding in our hands. This is their future that we're talking. We've been to school. We've got our education. This is for them.
All right, another question. There's still some time.
That's the hot button for me. Because we keep talking about money, money, money. And as being a former teacher, taught in mission schools with nothing and still saw the outcomes. Do you think money is the answer to educating students?
I do not. I grew up in poverty. I had a child at 16. I was a single parent whose child, when she was 16, was tutoring me to go and get an associate degree and saying, Mama, you can do this. I think that it's the passion that I have for education and how it can transform a life. It doesn't cost you anything to inspire a child that education really is the key to success. That's not just an empty cliche. I lived it. Didn't know what college was, but to grow up and to be able to go to college, go back, first of all, and get a high school diploma,
go to college, get an associate, bachelor's, 2 master's degrees, and a PhD, from going and not even knowing what college was, to now teaching teachers at Southern Wesleyan University. I teach in the School of Business and the School of Education. Education is a powerful tool, and we just need to get back to the business of communicating a zero tolerance for dropout and letting them know, children know the cost of everything and the value of nothing. And if they think the cost of education is too high, we need to really consider the cost of ignorance.
All right, that concludes this portion. Be sure as you leave, if you will, leave a donation back there on the table. All right. We appreciate everyone that had a part, big or small, in this event. We're glad for the candidates and the panelists and the news media and, of course, you and the good people of this church and all our people at the control panels. Now, if you want to know more about pcvotes.com, just go to pcvotes.com and you can keep abreast with what we're doing. We plan to have another debate, and that will be a senatorial debate between Larry Martin and Rex Rice. Our tentative date is October 23rd, but keep that in mind. We'd be glad to have you. Now, November the 6th, we'll see you at the polls. You're dismissed.